Welcome to another episode of the Fleet Success Show. I'm your host, Nathan Schafer. I am joined today by the City of Las Vegas, Brent Messner. And today we're going to talk about, career advice, thinking about, training your people and how to be more involved in the industry.
This is a Fleet Success Show, dedicated to helping you and your fleet succeed using the experience of fleet professionals and Hall of Fame fleet legends. The show that explores how the pillars of stakeholder satisfaction, intentional culture, resource efficiency, and risk management all combine to lead your fleet to success. We're glad you're here. Now, let's get into the show.
How you doing today?
Doing very good. Thanks for having me out.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad you can make it. So just a little bit about me for those of you that don't know me. I work at RTA, the Fleet Success Company, as a Fleet Success Manager. Spent about 25 years in the fleet industry doing all kinds of different positions. I think we're going to talk about some of that today. So I kind of want to get started with you, Brent, today and just kind of talk about your pathway in fleet, right? Like, how did you get started? Talk about some of the different positions you've held throughout your career, where you are today. We'll just kind of go from there.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So I started in government fleet in 2007. And so kind of to backtrack a little bit before that, in high school, I got into the auto shop program my senior year and just fell in love with the industry, fell in love with the idea of working on cars and fixing things. And I have a background in middle school and high school of IT. So 2004, 2005, cars were getting already very computerized, and it was only getting more and more. And so leveraging the computer knowledge and then learning the skills on how to be a technician was definitely like the gateway, the entryway to how I got into things.
I think I followed a similar path to that, right? Like, I started in the tech program in high school, really fell in love with working on cars, taking things apart, trying to figure out how it worked, making it work better. And I think I fell into something similar to you because I was the young guy in the shop, right? Like when the computers started coming out and the programming, and you could plug computers in and see live data streams, being the young guy, right? Like they're like, here, you figure this out. Like we don't know how to do that. So did you experience some of that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I went to Universal Technical Institute down here in Phoenix, 05 to 06. And as soon as getting out of there, I had all of the technical skills and knowledge and everything, how to use the newest electronic tools and diagnostic systems. And I had gone through Ford training, so I knew a lot of the Ford program just out of the box, leveraging the technology side of it. I definitely had people throughout my whole career, even to this day, I'll work with the technicians when they're having an issue with diagnostic software and trying to figure their way through something.
Came in as a technician, right? How long did you do that, and where did that take you?
So I was in the tire shop for 3 years with City of Henderson, and that job was very interesting. So I had to take care of tires, and I had to take care of all of our fuel sites, and then dead batteries, and the famous thing of all governments, all other assigned tasks. And so you become the jack of all trades in that position. So there's 3 years in the tire shop, and then I promoted up to light duty mechanic 2. And I was in the shop for 6 years. And yeah, I was light duty primarily. We were mixed municipal fleet, so we had a little bit of everything. I was on the white fleet side. So on the light duty technicians, we had 2 police mechanics and 2 light duty techs, white fleet. And so I spent a lot of time working on Duramax diesels and Ford 6 liters.
Yeah.
So love 6 liters. Everyone hates them, but that's
they had a lot of issues, right?
Once you learned all the issues, though, they were very simple.
Yeah. Because it was repetitively the same issues over and over and over again.
Exactly.
Right? So as a technician, right, you're doing your thing and you're, tech 1, tech 2 doing that. What do you think kind of was the pivotal moment where you thought you wanted to make, fleet a career, possibly move into other positions? Like, what was that kind of turning point for you?
Well, both of my parents worked government. And so I already knew the benefits coming in on the government side of having retirement, having good healthcare insurance, and then the work-life balance. When, I have things on my mind now, but when I was a technician, you clocked out at the end of the day. It was done. You weren't
Went
thinking
home,
about
forgot
work.
about it. Yep,
You
exactly.
didn't stress. There was no customer yelling at you, no one waiting. Not that there aren't customers yelling at you in government, but it's a different feel. It's like, we're all still getting paid. You're fine. And then as far as like making the jump and deciding to get into the leadership role, that was actually within basically my first day at Henderson. My boss at that time, kind of the introduction was, hey, you're going to run this place someday. So pay attention, be effective, and every position you hold, do it the best that you're able to do.
It's interesting that he said that to you. Do you think that was his introduction to everybody? Or do you think he saw something in you that he didn't see in others?
Well, I had two things. I had an age advantage. So there was a lot of technical knowledge that I had that a lot of the guys, unfortunately, government has a history of not being great on training. So I had the latest and greatest knowledge available at the moment. And then a lot of the guys also were kind of aging out, and they were on their way to retirement before my supervisor was. So I was going to be the senior person by attrition. So oftentimes when you're looking at that, it's going to be 15 years down the road before retirement. You need to find someone and force mentor them.
Right. Kind of create that succession plan.
Exactly. Yeah. And aim for the long term. I mean, short-term succession planning is great, but you also need to build your replacements sooner. Right. And if they have the goal starting out, it makes it a lot easier to continue and take the time, whether it's on their own or on the clock, to learn new skills and learn how to function better and how to get that leadership knowledge and management knowledge.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting, and that's kind of throwing me. But do you think that him saying that to you on day one changed your mindset of how you approach that position?
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would think so too. I think that makes people, when you walk into a position and you're told, hey, you're kind of the succession plan, right? Like, I think you look at things a little differently. You kind of open your lens to the wider perspective of things rather than just, this is my job and that's what I'm ultra focused on, right? For me coming through as a technician, working my way up, managing fleets, sometimes I would get questions from technicians a lot, and it would be like, hey, I'm, not sure if we should change these brakes, or what do you think about the tire wear here? Do you think we should just change them while it's here? And I finally had to tell these guys, look, I trust you to make a judgment call. If you think you need to change those, I'm going to stand behind you, and I will always err the side of caution, right? And so I think putting that trust in the technicians kind of empowers them. And so I love that, he said that to you on day one, because I think it changes your perspective, right? And I think it makes you put, a little bit more into that position, and even self-growth, right? Like you start thinking, okay, if I'm going to be the leader one day, like what do I got to start doing now, right? You don't wait until you see that opportunity, because it's already presented itself. So I think that's awesome. Okay. Well, outside of that, was there any like really good advice early on in your career that you still share with people today, or that you'd like to share with us today, that you got?
Well, this one wasn't super early in my career. This one was about 6 years ago. We got a new manager in, and the shop that I worked at was not big on ASEs. There's the bad joke in the industry that stands for ask someone else. And so no one had them. It wasn't really respected or anything. And we got this new manager in. He hadn't worked in the field as a technician in 15 years. Okay. He's still a master. Wow. And I was asking him, I was like, why are you keeping these up? Like they don't mean anything. And this was coming from bad culture on that side of things. Right. And he looked at me and he goes, hey, they might not mean anything to your employer, but they show the world that you're an active participant in the field. Right. And so take the time, and now granted ASEs, I still don't have any ASEs, but I'm an active participant in the field now that participating in trade shows, participating with professional organizations, and just building that brand and building that image that people know that I'm in fleet. They know that, I'm in leadership in fleet. So, and, try to bring people with you also. It's not, I know for a long time in a lot of industries, and fleet was bad at it also. But it was like, as you climbed the ladder, you broke it down behind you. I think I heard that on this show. But it's like, no, leave the ladder in place and help other people and point out that, hey, this rung is loose, don't step on it.
Yeah.
And advance everyone that follows you so that the whole team builds.
Right. Yeah. I think, for me, kind of going the opposite side of what you got, when I joined the military, somebody told me, and I can't remember who it was, but it was never miss an opportunity if they offer you training, ever. Even if you don't want to do it or you think it's the dumbest thing in the world, if they're going to offer you training, you go take it, because you never know, in life when that's going to come up and be, something to take advantage of. So, I went in the military, some opportunities. It was like, hey, you want to go take a 40-hour hazmat class? And I was like, I don't know what I'll ever use it for, but sure, sounds like a great time. I go do that. And then, one was like, hey, we have this training spot open for it's called MIMS. It was a maintenance paperwork stuff, right? Before computers were big. So it was like how to fill out all these government forms to buy stuff, right? Procurement. So I was like, I don't know what I'll ever use it for, but you're offering it to me, I'm gonna go take it, right? Same thing as a technician, though. As I got out of the military and I started turning wrenches, full time and working through my fleet career, a lot of these vendors and OEMs will hold free air brake training or AC trainings and things like that, and they're not super in depth, right? But it's something to go, sharpen that muscle, right? It's staying relevant in your job. So for me, that was like kind of mind opening early on in my career, and I started seeing where they're like, oh, you got this training? Well, now we're going to have you do this, and we're going to move you into this other position because you have that and others don't, right? It really does start to set you apart. So, that was one piece of great advice I got early on, that I took advantage of. So, all right, good. So as you're moving through your career, and you start to get into leadership, advice that you'd like to share from the fleet leadership perspective now that you're here?
Well, before the leadership side, I want to kind of roll back a little bit. So I decided to go back and get my bachelor's degree, starting in 2016. And everyone in the shop was like, oh yeah, whatever. This guy's not going to do it. Right. And fast forward 5 years later, I had finished my degree and graduated and was ready to start really looking for that next step. And everyone that was a naysayer, and even if they were supportive, but were just kind of like, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's keep the perspective that, at that time, 5 years was going to go by no matter what I did. So you might as well get an education before, whether it's a bachelor's degree, technical degree, getting your ASEs, CAFM if you're on the management side, or even if you're a technician trying for it, any of that is awesome to go after. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think, you're spot on, training, education, and continuing that even into your adult life, right? Like, when I got hired at the city as a fleet manager, I was like in my last semester of my bachelor's degree. The position required a degree. They saw that I was that close and they were like, yeah, we're willing to overlook it. Like, your qualifications are great. We'll take you. So, I appreciate that. And then about a year into working there, I was like, I think I'm going to get my master's degree. Like, I think I'm just going to keep pushing the envelope and try to get better. I did my CPFP with the city, started my CAFM there, finished that working here. So, I think that, continuing to learn and grow and improve your skills is definitely an important piece of advice I would share, especially with those, technicians coming in or somebody that wants to move up in their career. So, and so what kind of things are you doing at the city now to like kind of push your people, to keep training and educate and do those things so that they can move up?
Well, I bring in training as often as I can. We've done really good annually. we bring Cummins in, and They actually ship out a engine on a stand, full emission system and everything. And this way they have a test bed item that basically they get to work with and play with. And the instructor gets to force faults and different bugs and make the guys actually go through, diagnose, and repair the whole system. And I always tell the guys, because it does get a little bit redundant. It's sadly, I think it's way more difficult on the leadership side than I thought finding training that's actually quality. But I try to remind everyone that if you pick up one thing, even if it's just you got reminded of something that you might have forgotten, you learned it, but you never used it, then it's a valuable class. Right. And if you get 2 things, awesome. If you get 3, that's spectacular.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, asking key takeaways, right? After every day of training or every day of a conference, like, hey, what was your key takeaway today? Even if it's just one thing, like, what did you pick up today that you didn't have yesterday, right? And taking just one thing away and some of those networking opportunities, even at conferences for leadership, is great.
Because no one goes to school for fleet management, chances are you were never formally trained on how to successfully lead a fleet. That's where the Fleet Success Playbook comes in. The Fleet Success Playbook is your guide to building a safe, reliable, and efficient fleet that provides exceptional service. Learn all about the 4 pillars of fleet success: stakeholder satisfaction, intentional culture, resource efficiency, and risk management. Get nearly 100 years of combined advice on common challenges, practical solutions, actionable tips, and real examples from fleet industry experts who have been there and done that. Visit www.fleetsuccessplaybook.com to request your free copy today.
You'd mentioned training, right? And how hard it is to get training. So do you guys have an issue with not being able to send people out of state for training? Does that come up for you? Because I see that a lot in government.
Currently, yes. It's a financial limitation right now. Hopefully it's short term for only a year or so. However, a couple of our manufacturers that we partner with, Timco Street Sweepers for one of them, they've done a really good job working with us so that it's written in the contract when we buy a truck that it covers travel, boarding, and food for the technicians to go to Waco and get the factory training. Timco does awesome. The training is free as long as you have a truck. But our dealer network has been really good that they actually fund the other half of it that's difficult.
That you're restricted by from the city currently.
Yep.
Yeah. So good advice for you guys out there that are having those restrictions and issues. Start looking at building into your RFPs and your contracts, right? Yep. That was a good way that we went around some of that stuff early on in my career with the city because we had the same restrictions, right? It more stemmed from some issues with people that were out of state training, rather than kind of that limitation. But
to bring up like the issues and all that also. So I travel with my guys when we go out of state.
Yeah.
And I participate with them in the training.
Right.
But if you're unsure, send a trusted supervisor out with the staff when you're doing the training and, have fun with them. It's great for morale building and building that trust culture.
Yeah.
That, hey, we're having dinner with each other and lunch with each other every day for a week.
Right.
And, off hours, we're getting together, have a couple drinks, have some laughs, get to know each other better.
Yes.
That you're never going to learn about someone on the shop floor. So take the opportunity in leadership to be, don't just send people away to training, participate with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great advice too, and once they realize that you're committed to their, getting them better through training and helping them be more successful in their careers, I think that also starts to bridge that gap. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a great point. All right. So anything else further in your career that you can think of advice-wise that you would share for some of those that are listening?
Take the time to master your craft and make mistakes.
Yeah.
Being perfect every day sounds wonderful, but it's very boring.
Yeah.
Push the envelope. Don't just, if I have a saying, if anyone up the chain of command says no because I asked for something, until they tell me my job's at stake, stop asking, I'm going to rephrase the question and keep going for it.
Right. And you should.
And just keep pushing that pushing the envelope to make sure that your staff are taken care of, make sure the operation's taken care of, because you never know when, what was no a year ago, there might be a circumstance that things have changed.
Right.
A good example of that is when we started moving over to RTA Web 360, I asked for iPads for all of my technicians, and I was told by everyone in IT, oh, no one's ever going to approve that.
Yeah.
It was like 30 days later, I had iPad Pros for every single staff member.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, this never happens. So, you have to validate the ask and make sure that there's actually something there for it, but take the time, write up a good proposal and explain why the need is valid.
Right. For sure. Yeah, I think that's a good point. For me, again, that training piece early on, and then the second piece of advice, that I got later in my career that was kind of mind changing was, you hear it and it's take care of your people and they'll take care of you. Mm-hmm. Right. And you kind of mentioned this about like, hey, take these people to training, like be involved, get to know them. I think taking care of your people, that's part of it, right? Getting to know them on a personal level, asking them how their family is, like knowing some of that stuff. But I think, also to go with that is like knowing what their, goals are, their career goals are, and like helping support that, right? And I've talked about that before. I've listened to Josh for many years. I was a customer, of RTA before I worked here. So, listening to some of his conversations for the last 5 or 6 years as he's been talking about it, right? And then it really started changing my mindset about really focusing on my people, right? And that culture and the training and stuff like that. So, retention's a big deal right now with technicians, finding them, keeping them, things like that, especially in government. So we really have to, focus on those people and not only training, but getting to know them and helping them advance their careers too. So, outside of that, initially you're going to run this place one day. Has there been any other, people in leadership that kind of helped you or kind of shape your career, and what did they do to help that?
I think there's a lot of inadvertent career shaping. I occasionally become outspoken, and so I became an inadvertent leader in the shop without the role. I didn't have the title, but people still came to me for advice. I'm not afraid of asking questions, and so people would come to me and go, "Hey, the union manual says this, but this is happening. What's your thoughts on it?" Yeah. And it'd be, well, I don't know the answer. I don't, lean heavy on the union side of things, but I could find out. I know people. Yeah. And just having that trust and being the go-to person built the feeling of being a leader without the title. And, so when you see staff doing that, definitely try to help support that and prop it up. And I can't say for certain that my, supervisor and manager did that. But I think they probably did. They probably referred people to come talk, to me without me knowing about it.
Yeah. They saw you being willing to talk to people and help them figure out, their answers. So, you said something, right? And it was, I know people. Mm-hmm. And I always talk about how relationships are like the foundation of any good leader and honestly in fleet. Right. This industry is all about relationships, because if you don't know the answer, somebody in your network probably does know the answer or has solved that problem before or something like that. So, early in your career as a technician, if you want to move up, right, focus on getting better, right, training, doing those things, learning about leadership. And I would say as you move up into leadership, like start building that network, having a regular network of people that are close to you and that you can reach out to, right? And we try to do that at RTA and be that for the industry. But, you've got a group of people that you talk to regularly. And in fact, I think you guys started a podcast. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
We did, sure, yeah. So I'm one of the hosts, one of 3 hosts on the Not Just Fleet podcast. Make sure you look for it on YouTube. Sign up. Come on, we're looking for people. And we're fleet adjacent. We talk about fleet a lot. But we're after hours, so we're a little bit more rough. It's a little bit more of an entertainment thing, not nearly as informational as some of the other podcasts that are out. but even though we're just starting it, the outreach from other people has been fantastic. People that, whether I've chatted with them at expo halls and conferences or never met them before in my life, they're reaching out going, hey, this is awesome. If you need a guest or need, ideas or anything, reach out. Right. And building that brand and building that platform, on the podcast side is absolutely awesome. On even just as an individual, even as a technician, get your LinkedIn page up and start interacting with people in the industry or in positions or in roles that you want to go after, and reach out and ask questions and learn. Everyone in fleet likes to talk with each other. We're all isolated in our silos at our job, but we really, really want to connect and have those friendships and have the conversations to make sure that our industry thrives.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I absolutely love about my position here too, is I get the chance to talk to hundreds and hundreds of fleet people every year, right? I get to see the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that work for some fleets, the things that don't work for some fleets. And so, that kind of gives some of us a unique perspective because we just see so much of it, right? Where, for you probably see, okay, here's our operation, and maybe you visit a couple of neighboring operations so you understand how they work. But I'm all over the country, right? And I'm seeing things in different regions, and I've really learned a lot, just doing that. And so, I absolutely love going to the trade shows and talking to people and help solve problems. And it seems like pretty much everywhere you go, the problems are pretty much the same, right? Everybody's up against the same issues. So, definitely reach out, build those networks. I think that's been one of the best things for my career, is just having a good network. When I was up in the Salt Lake Valley, we had a good core group of guys that went to lunch every month. And we would bounce not only fleet issues, but vendor issues, right? Because sometimes you guys are all using the same vendor for some particular whatever, and that vendor's just not good. So you guys get together and you say, okay, what are we going to do about this? Do we get the state involved if they're on a state contract and try to figure out how to do it that way? Do we tell the vendor, hey, we want to meet as a big group and just air grievances and see if we can move past whatever the issues are? Because I've done it both ways, right? And it seems to always help. But the network thing, it's a huge help. So.
It is absolutely. No, and with what you're talking about with vendors and everything, kind of funny. I actually just taught a class this week at FleetCon, and it was about leveraging your vendor relationships to maximize, the outcome.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. After doing the class, I had both customers and vendors coming up and asking questions that it's like, hey, you said something about, making sure and building that extra into the contract and talking and getting to know whether it's the client or the vendor and building the exact expectation so that you can get that perfect 10 out of 10. And they're like, well, how do you get the time to do that? And it's like, well, processes take time. You have to build the relationship. The vendor that I actually was co-teaching the class with, it took us a year and a half before we signed up with them after the initial meeting. There was no sales pitch. There was no, it was, hey, this is what we do. Can we help you? At the moment, it was a no, but the vendor still wanted to hang out with us and get to know us as people, and then learn our struggles through just conversation instead of going, hey, what can I fix for you? And, so just building the expectation and building the communication, it takes time, but it's worth it in the end because you end up with a partner that can definitely bring your group to the next level.
Right. Yeah. And you'd posted about that topic, I think a week or so ago on your LinkedIn. And I was like, man, that's a great topic. Right. I love it. So I knew as soon as I seen you were doing it, I wanted to come attend that topic or your presentation. Because for me, again, relationships, right? I was always wanting to create a relationship with our vendors, exactly what you're talking about, right? Let's just get down to the problems I have, what I'm trying to solve, what my outcome need is, and how you can help me get there, right? You may not do that currently, but like, if you want my business, like, we're going to have to figure out a way together if you want to, be a vendor for us. So, I think it was a great topic. I hopped up in your session and just told everybody, if you're trying to get to those outcomes with a vendor and they tell you no because you're asking, it's time to shop for a new vendor, right? And I did that several times when I was at the city. Like, hey, this is the problem I'm solving and you're not quite getting there. So what do we have to do? And they would just be like, well, this is the service level you're going to get. And I walked, right? Many times. And some people probably will struggle with that because they don't have quite the metro area that they live in, and they may only have one vendor, right? Or it might be a little mom and pop shop. So, but for those of you that are in those situations, right, it's still about the relationship. Absolutely. Like, make sure they're getting paid on time, make sure they're delivering things to your expectation, like open the lines of communication and make sure everybody understands, kind of back and forth what you're looking for.
And follow up with them. It's not a one-time conversation that the contract's signed and we're done. No, evolve the contract. You can always reopen and make addendums. So, if something isn't working or it used to work, but now your operation has changed, update it.
Yep. So. Yeah, I will say, we taken trucks into a vendor, one particular vendor, it was like, 2, 3, 4 weeks before they'd even touch a truck. Other vendor, it was like within 24 hours, I had an email of, hey, the technician did an initial diagnostic. This is what we think it is. Give us a few days to dig into it a little further, to confirm for you. But it was that initial communication that was happening so quickly, right? That it was like, oh, they're already on top of it, Or, vendor would stop by once a week and say, hey, I know you haven't reached out. How are things going? Anything we can help you with? So it was that two-way communication and feeling like you were seen, right? That was very beneficial. So, yeah, it was a great topic last week. So continue doing that one because I think it's a good one.
Yeah,
people need it. So
we'll refine it and we'll be back.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of how they go, right?
Yep.
So awesome. Well, anything else that you can think of for advice? There is one small topic I want to talk about, but I want to let you, if there's any other good advice that you've gotten in your career that you'd like to share.
The biggest thing is just take the time to learn. And even though it stinks spending your own money to go out and learn things, invest in yourself. If your company won't invest in you, if you invest in yourself, there would be a better job or a better opportunity available. And it just take the time. If you want to go after, a degree, just do one class, sign up for one. You don't have to sign up for a full load. You don't have to be a full-time student. Take time going through and just take the time, invest in yourself, invest in the opportunity, and make the opportunity for yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think doing some of the conferences, right? FleetCon was this week. We were at NAFA together. Doing some of those conferences is a great way to do that, right? Go and sit in some of those topics that you want to learn more about and just, get better as a fleet professional. And it's an easy way to advance your career. So I kind of want to switch tracks because you and I came through the industry in the same way, right? We both started as technicians, kind of worked our way through our careers and become, fleet managers and manage governments and things like that. So, one of the things that I'm seeing more and more, and we've talked about it on the podcast and, Steve talks about it a lot is the institutional knowledge in fleet is retiring, right? You're seeing a lot of this gap of knowledge leaving the industry. And it's tough to find good fleet managers nowadays, right? And what I'm seeing, and maybe you've seen it too, is people are coming in as fleet managers that have never worked in fleet before, right? So they're getting plugged in from, some other operational area of the organization, or it's like, hey, you're really good at your job, and I know you don't do fleet, but because you're good at your job, we think you'll do good in this job. So they pull people, from all over different areas in the organization, and they drop them in fleet. Have you seen that going on recently?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And what do you think is your best advice for those that have never been in fleet before on how they can get spun up quickly?
Get with professional organizations. NAFA has the CAFM program. It's very difficult. It's very high level. But if you're a manager, it spells out the roadmap to be successful. Get involved with the fleet community. Like I've said a few times, be an involved participant in the industry and build your network and learn who to meet, because you're going to run into problems that your technicians are going to come up to you and expect that you have an answer. You've never worked on a car. You don't have a toolbox or anything. You don't know what's going on. How are you going to find that answer? Well, you build your network and so that you can ask.
Yeah, and I would almost say, the best fleet managers that I see in the industry usually come from the shop floor, right? And it's not because that's the way I did it, so I'm like, hey, I'm the best, right? But it's because they have the experience of all the different positions, right? You think about, these people that get, their parents start a company. Well, let's take Josh, for example, right? Josh owns RTA. He started in RTA working all the different positions, right? Like Josh used to travel out and do training. Josh has worked in customer support, right? He's done the different positions at RTA so that as he became the CEO, like he understood what it took for his people in those positions to do their jobs, right? And I think that just gives more clarity as a leader, right, to what it really takes. So I will always say I think the best fleet managers come from the shop floor. So if you can do it that way, that's like, I think the best way to go about it. But obviously, if you're getting into fleet management and you've never been in the fleet industry, NAF is a great resource. APWA, if you're on the government side, is a great way to go. They have a certification program as well. Go to conferences.
If you're on the other side of it too, that you come in not working in a shop before, take the time and humble yourself. Go out on the shop floor and do a PM with the technicians and act like the new guy. Have them teach you how to do it. Learn how to change a tire. Learn how to do a brake inspection. Go learn how to do a pre-trip on a commercial truck. A proper pre-trip, not the new age one. And yeah, just take the time to learn the craft that you're now the leader of. You don't have to be, you're not going to be the master technician, but at least know the lingo, especially when your techs come up to you and tell you about a problem. If you have no idea what IDS is, well, all right, what's IDS? I know right away they're working on a Ford diagnostic program and it's older than 2022. So, but if you don't have that innate knowledge already, start trying to pick it up and participate with your staff.
Yeah. Or they start talking about exhaust bearings and blinker fluid and you're like, okay, yeah. And you just don't know what they're talking about, right? So yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. Fleet management's complex. There's a lot of stuff to it, and I know Mark has a couple slides that he shows and just kind of starts listing out all the different things. You're dealing with risk and, parts and fuel and just all this different stuff. And so you're not going to be the best at it right away. It's going to take time, but I think that's great advice. Like walk the shop floor, learn that, spend some time with the parts room, kind of figure out their processes and what you should be helping them with. So.
And on the other side of it, just to throw another little extra that you got to do as a fleet manager, learn how your operators work also. Yeah. Because especially if you're speccing vehicles for replacements, learn the job that they need to do so that you can get the right asset to perform the task. Yeah. If you don't need a Chevy 5500 and a 2500 will do, get a 2500, save the money, save the budget, but also that 5500 might prevent them from getting into their work zone. Yeah. So, take time, go out and learn the Vector crews and the sewer crews. It's gross and dirty. See what they do.
Yeah. You'll learn not only what they need to do their jobs, right, but you'll gain a respect for what they're doing. So when they come and ask you for, this hydraulic widget or that hydraulic widget, you'll know exactly what they're using it for and why they need it. So yeah, that's great. We used to always try to involve operators when we were changing specs. We used to meet with fire and go over their specs all the time and really just make sure, because we're not using it, right? We're repairing it. So we're kind of the experts on the chassis side of things. That engine's not big enough or whatever. But when it comes to the pumps and controls and hydraulics and the buckets and all the things that they're using, it's like, is this going to work for what you do every day? Because I don't know, right? So yeah, I think that's great advice as well. So awesome. All right. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
No, thank you for having me out.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
It's been a fun week. Again, professional organizations, it's incredible the people that you get to meet and the stories that you get to hear. So yeah, take the time, invest in yourself. Managers, invest in your team. Send people to training, even if it seems a little off the wall. Next week is Connect. I have all of my staff going at least one day, and I want them to see the leadership side of things, not just technical training. It's get that well-rounded. So hopefully I have more people come up to me and ask, hey, how can I get to the next level? Or I'm interested in this. How can I get there?
Yeah, that's a great point. Anybody that brought up, hey, we'd like to learn more about leadership, or, fleet management is a bigger picture. There's opportunities out there to send them to, 8-hour fleet management classes, or, fleet management tracks at a conference somewhere. So yeah, it's just, conferences are good. I know a lot of people don't get to them, especially in the city organizations, because of the, you got to travel out of state, or it's just a conference. What are you going to get out of it? And it's like, there is a lot of really good information out there. So yeah, I would second that. So yeah, FleetCon was this week. It was a great conference. Kind of put us both in the same place, right? So that we had the opportunity to come into the office and record the podcast in studio. So great spending time with you this week. You guys did some great presentations. So yeah, thanks for coming, and we'll wrap up this episode.
Perfect.
We hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on LinkedIn or leave a review. Want to learn more about our fleet management software, Fleet 360? Check us out at rtafleet.com. If you want to learn more about having your fleet evaluated by our consulting team, go to fleetconsulting.com.